So we have Paul from Enin with us. He's an expert on artificial intelligence, and his company is doing artificial intelligence on stock markets, analyzing language, analyzing news, and giving input to traders. I guess he can tell us a little bit more about it himself. But thank you very much for joining us, Paul, and be my guest. The stage is yours.
Thank you very much. Just a sec, I'm going to try to share my screen so I can get up my presentation. Can you see my desktop yet?
Yes, we can see it.
Right, great. I've got the video link so I can see you here on another screen, but well, there's about 2 minutes of lag, so it's not very responsive about here. So, I'm here to talk about AI and the blockchain. As briefly mentioned, I work for a AI startup. Let's see if I can minimize. My background is in industrial economics from NTNU, where I specialized in artificial intelligence and finance. I used to work as a business intelligence consultant and now work for Enin. I won't bore you too much with what we do, but our specialty is taking unstructured data, mostly news, and analyzing it to gain a benefit for the financial sector. So, advanced sentiment analysis, if anyone's familiar with the term. Now, before I continue, I'm sorry, but every single AI presentation has to include a slide. It's the law. Before we continue with talking about AI, we've got to define it. And I've stolen this definition from Wikipedia because it's the least wordy. Defining AI is not easy. But the important parts here is it's an intelligent, rational agent which can perceive its environment and take actions to maximize the chance of success at some goal. However, you may notice the last part of this definition, which states that when machines are becoming more capable, some things that we believed are defined as requiring intelligence are no longer defined as artificial intelligence. But this gives us these 3 main points to define an AI. It needs to understand its environment, it needs to take some kind of action, and it needs to further some goal. Those are the 3 things we're looking at. However, if I may go on a brief tangent, the definition I showed you is part of the reason why AI researchers are bitter. The thing is, AI is a field which has changed quite a lot, mostly because we've removed more and more from it. If we find a solution for a problem, we stop calling it AI. This annoys the heck out of AI researchers because they've solved quite a lot of AI problems, and then we start calling them easy problems. One example of this is search. Just trying to find the quickest route from one point to another used to be defined as an AI problem. Now we just call them search algorithms or pathfinding algorithms because they're easy. You can write a quick pathfinding algorithm in 15 lines of code. It's not AI, it's not hard enough. In other words, the field of AI is more defined as the stuff we can barely solve more than a specific area of it. But that gives us a 4th point here. It has to be non-trivial. If you can write the algorithm on the back of an envelope, it probably isn't AI. So, AI and the blockchain. There are many ways that you could link the AI to blockchain, but as far as I'm going to cover in this talk, there's 2 main ways of doing it. The first is looking at AI as a medium. No, sorry, the blockchain as a medium for AI itself. But more relevant right now is probably blockchain as an environment. If you recall, we had this definition here where the AI had to perceive its environment. The blockchain would be such an environment. The blockchain as an environment is quite exciting for AI, if only because there is far more information available than in similar environments. If we're looking at finance specifically, trying to get specific high-resolution data for financial transactions is difficult. And this is something I've experienced largely because it is literally my day job now. You can find hour by hour data, day by day data, that's no problem. Google it, you'll find it. Try to find minute for minute data or transaction for transaction, and that's almost impossible, or at least expensive. Blockchain-based currencies are in their nature far more open, which means that if you're training your AI on a blockchain currency, you've got a so far historically impossible level of resolution compared to if you're building it in a traditional field. The main change this makes is it would make finance AIs in the blockchain democratic. You don't need to be Goldman Sachs to run a successful trading robot anymore. So let's talk about it. Blockchain currencies are different from other currencies, and they are an interesting field to try to develop a trading bot for. And I've looked around and I see that there are several of you out there that are considering making these robots, but there are some unique quirks to blockchain finance so far, which gives some challenges. The first of them is simply maturity. The traditional currency markets are far more stable and have far more actors in them, which means that the movements are not quite as radical as in blockchain finance. This means making a robot is both simpler and more difficult. It's simpler because you can go a couple of steps back. You can look at simple techniques that were used 10 years ago in traditional finance. It makes it more difficult in that the stabilizing effects that the normal markets have are not as pronounced in these type of economies. But first of all, data is simpler to get. But yeah, the instability issue. Here I've just grabbed the Bitcoin prices here. You guys are far more familiar with this than me. But if you compare this type of prices to any other currency, it's got more in common with a third world country currency than with a traditional one. If you're trying to find a country to compare this to, you end up comparing it to countries that are, if not actual war zones, that are not far from it, instead of US dollars. Here we've got some volatility indexes. Volatility indexes are just easy ways of trying to set a number to how volatile, how fast changing a currency is. The yellow line is the VIX index. No, sorry, it's a volatility index for US dollars. The blue line is a similar index computed for Bitcoin. As you might have thought, there's an absurd amount of volatility in Bitcoin as compared to traditional currencies. That's good. If you're trying to make money off of movements, larger movements are easier to make money out of. If it's stable, it's harder. So, what kind of strategies could we use? I have not yet tried to make a trading robot for blockchain. I suspect one of you guys might be able to do that before me. But from what I can see, blockchain currencies are extremely vulnerable currently to sentiment trading. Sentiment trading is based upon analyzing all the news or discussion around a given topic, trying to guesstimate which direction the underlying commodity or currency is going to move, and then buying or selling it. The idea is you're trying to model how a human analyzes a situation somewhat faster. If you're able to do it fast enough, it's not quite scalping, but you might be front running as a scholar. You're doing the same trades, but doing it slightly faster. This is dependent on being able to analyze the sentiment around the field accurately and quickly. That is not easy, but the trick is if you do it well enough. If you're able to predict 55% of trades correctly, you end up making money. So if I was going to make a trading bot for blockchain right now, I'd look at sentiment. The second one here, overcorrection and mean reversion, is based upon traditional market movements. Overcorrection is something you can observe quite often. If a given news story happens, or if a given event occurs, the market may move quite a lot more than it probably should. It overcorrects for this effect. After this, it'll have a slump. If you look at a market movement happening after a news story, you will very often see this type of effect. This is relevant to combined sentiment trading, simply because that you can make a strategy which is, if there is a very quick movement, sell as in short trade in some way, or buy if it's going down, and wait till it jumps up a little. There's quite a lot of people who are doing this type of strategies in the normal financial markets, so it's harder to make money based on it. But from what I can see on day-to-day movements in blockchain, it is a direct possibility. The second strategy here, mean reversion strategies, is something which is a tricky field in blockchain currencies. Mean reversion simply means that everything reverts to the mean. If you've got a brief movement, if you've got a large movement, things will stabilize afterwards, and very often it will stabilize to roughly the point it was before. I suspect this will be a good strategy to base oneself on in 1 year. I have not seen a blockchain currency which has found a stabilizing point yet. If you look at the Bitcoin prices, these movements are too large to use a mean reverting strategy. But in a year or two, when movements are more predictable, buying into a movement which is too large, expecting it to go back to the normal or to the previous norm, is going to be a way to make money. And I'm talking very blatantly about making money here, but this is finance. It's a cynical business and people are in it to make money. Sorry. If you're going to talk about the architecture or all the great future things you can make with this, there are better people to talk to about this. I probably know less about blockchain than most of you guys in the room. I'm sorry. However, I'm talking a lot about instability in blockchain currencies. There is a heck of a lot of it in normal currencies. And robots and AI, they make that problem worse. Flash crashes in normal currencies are generally caused by AI robots going insane. They are simply overactions and very often based on the sentiment strategies I mentioned before. They look at the news, they react far more than humans do, and then you get extreme dips. This flash crash happened just a week ago. this is the British pound to US dollar transaction rate, and it fell by 6%. Once again, note that it stabilized closer to its previous level. But an AI robot more or less destroyed the market temporarily. Flash crashes do happen with blockchain currencies as well, but they're not quite at the same level as what the term flash crash is used in the traditional economy. Mostly because the flash crashes I've seen in Bitcoin happen during a day. Flash crashes in normal currencies or in normal markets happen within minutes. And this is simply because high-speed trading has not yet hit Bitcoin or other blockchain currencies. But it'll be interesting to see what happens when they do. Then we get to the fun parts. How can you use blockchain as a medium for AI? And by medium, I mean simply, how can blockchain be part of an AI, or an AI be part of a blockchain? Not just exploiting financial movements. First of all, we've got the new big sexy thing within IT, which is the Internet of Things. The problem with Internet of Things is how the heck to share data, and for that matter, all of these wonderful sensors everywhere which we're going to be exploiting, how will we get money from that? One suggested method to do so is sensing as a service based on blockchain. Someone running sensors could use a blockchain type mechanism for rewarding sensor data gathering. Now, the actual sharing of data should probably not happen in a blockchain, simply because it takes up space. But it can simply be done using a peer-to-peer method or Ethereum Swarm, that type of mechanism. But setting the timestamps in a blockchain can be used as a proof of work type mechanism, allowing an entirely different way of running the sharing of sensor data. I don't think this will be big within the next couple of years, but it does solve some problems that are being looked at currently. The next is simply using blockchain as communication and coordination channel for AI. Coordination of different AI agents is not easy. Swarms and similar types of structures are not used in a distributed manner, simply because trying to get them to communicate over distances is difficult. I'm not sure if any of you are familiar with the Byzantine generals problem. Raise your hands if anyone. Right, good. Short version, the Byzantine generals problem is just trying to make sure that the other guy knows that, or that I know that you know that I know that you know that, etc. The classic case is you've got two generals trying to coordinate an attack, but the enemy is in the middle. So they need to make sure they need to attack at the same time. They send messengers across the valley, but the enemy could kill a messenger. So how do you make a scheme for each messenger where you know that the other guy has got your message about when to attack, and the other guy knows that you know that they've got your message when to attack? It gets a bit silly, but it is more or less impossible to solve in theory. This, however, is one of those fun problems that you can actually solve in practice and block one solution. Using blockchain and proof of work mechanisms, you can actually confirm that at least over half a consensus, that is, I agree upon a time or a way to do things. This may sound esoteric and, well, a logic problem, but for a swarm type intelligence, being able to agree on that type of consensus is critical. And using blockchain, a swarm may be able to coordinate in a distributed manner over great spaces and communication like. So, why do I talk about swarms? Well, in AI is fashion driven. You've got a new cool thing which we're talking about right now. And that's everything anyone is willing to talk about right now. The current fashion is deep learning. Now, you've probably all heard a buzzword, but deep learning is neural nets. It used to be the buzzword and the cool thing in the 80s. So now when we're doing it today, we give it a new name. And we excuse it with saying that these neural nets we're using now are deeper and actually learn. Yes. We've had other fashions before. The previous trend was using random forests or random jungles or random, larger version of random trees, which solved quite a lot of problems. Now we're using deep learning to solve quite a lot of other problems. And some of those problems are actually ceasing to be AI. Optical character recognition used to be considered an AI problem, but now that accuracy has gone over 90%, it's now just an algorithm. Once again, why AI researchers are better. But there is one fashion which I suspect will come in again. And blockchain will be the mechanism to make it interesting. Swarms. Swarms use emergent properties, as in you've got quite a lot of agents who together can coordinate and solve a larger problem. I'll get back to that in a minute. This picture I just put in because it's funny. It's from the latest cookie collection, which they presented 2 weeks ago. Apparently, in the world of fashion, data centers are in. And for some reason, Daft Punk. Right. I was talking about neural nets. Neural nets we call it a sub-logical system, as in they're biologically inspired. We try to copy how you'd think the brain is constructed. But that does not work very well for distributed computing. You've got some methods for how to do it. But neural nets and that type of methodology uses quite broad feature sets. By broad feature set, I simply mean number of columns, number of features. A deep learning feature set can be hundreds or thousands of data points wide. This makes it quite difficult for a distributed methodology. You can, considering that for most of these learning methods, you need to keep data in memory. This is generally done on computers with 60 gigabytes of RAM or up. So, using swarms, however, you can use a number of simple actors and they can coordinate to solve a bigger problem. Ants are a classic example here. Insects use simpler algorithms. They've got ways of communicating, ways of coordinating. Each ant isn't clever, but the ant is clever. Using a large number of agents coordinating in different manners, you can get quite complex behavior. The difficulty is coordinating these agents, so giving them some method of communicating, which doesn't cost quite a lot of bandwidth. And I do believe that a blockchain is the solution for this problem. Now, the next slide I put in just because I love it. I'm sorry, but this may be my favorite GIF on the entire internet. I've got no other reason to include it. But right, swarms. There has been some early papers on using blockchain-type mechanisms to coordinate swarms, and I'd suggest you look into them because this puts the blockchain in more or less in real world. Most of these approaches is how to coordinate actual robots. It can also be used to coordinate a distributed agent acting on some digital problem. The last part, which I must admit I do not have a solution for how to do this, but I'll pose it to you guys in the room or outside it. Could one build an AI in a blockchain? One example of this would be running a blockchain as a AI learning contest. You've got several different AI agents or AI producers, either human designers or evolutionary algorithms or similar, trying to solve a problem. Being able to improve on the previous solution could be used as a proof of work mechanism. The reward would be could then be run as a blockchain currency. Of course, what I'm describing here is a very advanced and complicated method to run a Kaggle contest, but it could actually be useful. I just don't know how yet. Now, I suspect you guys are tired of listening to me. I'll just finish off with 2 reading suggestions. The first, Accelerando, a book by Charles Ross. It is available for free online, and you can also buy it. And it's interesting. It's fiction set to the point where the singularity happens. It's written before blockchain was ever suggested, and quite large parts of the book could describe Ethereum. The main interesting part of it is in Act 3, where he starts describing what he calls Economy 2.0, where AI-driven companies, completely independent of people, are acting in their own self-interest as economic agents. I'm not sure, I don't think that'll happen, and neither does the author, but it should inspiration for how we can construct smart contract-based companies and similar.
I'm sorry, Paul, could you please repeat the last sentence? You fell out of it.
Oh, right. That book is fiction and should not be taken as anything you actually can implement or use. But it can serve as inspiration for how you can possibly construct a future economy based on blockchain-type currencies and smart contracts. It should be mentioned that in the book, this economy is more or less the bad guy, but, well, it's a good read anyway. The second reading suggestion is an actual paper. It's written by a MIT graduate and is a suggested structure for how to run a robotic swarm system using blockchain communication. This isn't original research, but does summarize a number of different approaches in the field. But it is a possible solution for how we can finally be able to make physical swarms of robots. Now, I personally find that exciting, which might indicate me being a bit odd, but it does show how we can start making a distributed physical agent that can solve problems using blockchain technology. I suggest you at least give it a skim because it's a fun paper. So that's enough from me. Thanks for listening, and I hope it's been interesting.
Yeah.